Welcome to the Christ Connection Podcast. We are here to help and encourage you to enjoy your adventure with Jesus. I'm your host, Kevin Senapati-Ratna. Let the journey begin. Well, welcome to the show and welcome to 2019. If you're listening to this near when it launches here, we're in a new year with new possibilities. One of my favorite holidays of the year. I know I'm a little strange, but I love the possibility of a new year and what's possible there. I know it's an arbitrary date or whatnot, but people use that as an opportunity to think of their life and think of what God's calling them to do, and so they kind of step back and look at their life and say, okay, I want to change this, I want to change that, and what we have for you today is really going to help you with that. If you're a New Year's resolution person, you may have already broken those New Year's resolutions, but now you can stop for a second and say, okay, how can I have the best year ever? My guest today is Sam Farina. Sam Farina has been speaking around the world for years. I still remember when I was in college, he had a message that he preached in chapel, and that was 20 years ago, and I still remember what he had to say there. So he's a great speaker, been speaking for years, and believing in the possibilities and values of coaching, he's taken on that and started the Sam Farina group, specialists in the field of coaching. He's started that. He's achieved the title of Professional Certified Coach with the International Coaching Federation. That sounds pretty impressive. And helps coach lots of people and give them assessments and work with groups like that. He holds a doctorate of ministry, actually, with an emphasis in professional coaching. He helped the Assemblies of God pioneer a coaching network, and he continues to train and resource with that. Personally, for me, he's done coaching with me and has been helpful for me over the years, and I'm grateful for that. And he's also a member of the advisory council for my ministry, Christ Connection. This conversation is a great one with lots of stuff, and as we get into the new year, this is a great one to kind of just sit down and soak in and kind of get kind of refocused on not only this year, but kind of your purpose in life and what God has for you and what He's going to do through you. There's loads of takeaways here. You're going to want to probably take some notes and go to the show notes as well, because we're going to mention books and things like that. And so you're going to want to grab that. This is a good conversation again to just kind of let it soak over in your head. Maybe listen to it a couple times just to get all the things that he covers and grab the things that you need for your life. So without further ado, my conversation with Sam Farina. All right, Sam Farina, welcome to the show.
Well, good to be with you, Kevin.
I've given, before we go on, we already had the intro with all the fine superlatives that go with you, but for me it's also great to be with you because you've been a coach and a mentor for me personally, and so let me publicly start off by saying thanks for investing in me over the years.
It's been my privilege and not hard to coach. Some people are easier to coach, and you're a good one for that, and so it's been a joy.
Well, I appreciate you being on, and just so as people are getting to know you, I thought we'd kind of learn a little bit about who is Sam Farina, and so maybe we'll start way back, go back a ways. When you think of Sam Farina as a kid, what kind do you certain things that you think of? What kind of kid were you growing up?
Well, I think I was, you hear some parents say, he's all boy. I think I was that kind of kid. I was the kid that couldn't wait to get something to shoot, whether it was a pellet gun or a bow and arrow, or, I think I killed more plastic army men with my pellet gun than you could ever imagine. And, school was relatively easy for me. It wasn't like that wasn't a difficulty for me. I think my biggest difficulty was sitting quiet during those years. Probably was my biggest difficulty, but and a childhood that I wouldn't say was a difficult childhood. I think the worst thing I ever did was snorted M&Ms, and getting those out were a joy. But, yeah. So I mean, it was, you know, by my teen years, I was already involved in ministry type things, and I was very interested in working in the youth of our church. Those days, you didn't have a youth pastor, and you didn't, you know, but so we just did it. The students did it, and students led it, and you had some adult sponsors, and I was involved in that. That was a great time for me, and yeah. So I don't look back and go, those were dark days. No, they really were dark days.
So if you jumped into a youth group, I mean, even as a youth, is that where you sensed God's calling was as a teenager? Or was it earlier than that? Or?
Yeah. That's exactly right. So as a teenager, I had what's called, so I think there's a lot of people that have dramatic calls, and then there are some that they just feel led by God. And for me, I did have a dramatic call. So when I was about 14, I was in prayer, and I had what I would call a vision. And of that vision, I saw these faces, and they were people from all over the world. They were dressed in their natural cultural garb. And I was just blown away. I didn't know any of the people except for one face. And the only face I knew was my next door neighbor. He's my best friend. And Kenny would come over to the house every morning at about 8 o'clock in the morning. He would have been there earlier, but my mother wouldn't let him. My mother said he couldn't come before 8. And that was the only face I recognized. So I thought, okay, God must be telling me that I'm supposed to share my faith with my best friend. And I did. I shared with him. He made a commitment to Christ. I thought everyone had to come to church in order to really be saved. So then I brought him to church to make a public confession there, and he did. And so I was pretty excited about that. But it was 2 weeks later that he went on vacation with his family. And they were not gone, but maybe a couple days. And my mother came in my bedroom. She was emotionally moved. I could see that. And she said, we got to go over to the Petersons. And I thought, I think I said to her, they're on vacation. And she said, no, they're home. They came home last night. And Kenny was out fishing. They went to Lake Chautauqua in northern Wisconsin. There might be some people listening that know where that is. And I knew something wasn't right when she said that. And he fell out of the boat, and he never could swim. I knew he couldn't swim. It took him about 20 minutes to get his body up from the weeds from the bottom or out of the water. And so at his funeral, I really heard God speak to me. He's not there. He is with me, and you shared with him, and he's with me. And now I want you to go and find all those other faces. So for me, my call into ministry was what I call a dramatic call. Now, I don't want anybody listening thinking that you've got to have that kind of dramatic call in your life, because that is not always the case. They're not always burning bushes. but so there is, the calling. You look at other characters in Scripture that didn't have that kind of a calling, and they were just as called, and they were just as effective, and they had just as big an impact. So I always tell people, because I think some people get confused when they hear a testimony like this, or they hear someone about your life. Well, I haven't had that, and it must not be God. And no, that's not the case at all. Not the case at all. As a matter of fact, we need right now 300 missionaries to commit to go to Africa. And I'm calling anyone who's listening today. And you say, wait a minute, don't I have to have this vision of Africa? No, you don't. Just look at your life, and if you've been feeling some direction that you want to really commit your life, and even if you're in a career right now and you want to commit your life to missions and do something impacting in your life, then I'm calling out to you, because we need you. There's a shortage, there's a need, And but it doesn't have to be that dramatic. So I just want to share that with you.
Yeah, you're giving the call right now. The
I,
listener can.
I am giving the call, and you contact me or contact Kevin, and because we can put you to work, and you can have a great impact for God.
Uh, so right after that point, you got into doing what you could, and then did you go to Bible school right after like high school or?
I did. As a matter of fact, in high school. So in high school, I had this call, and then I began music. So I sang. So I had, I think all of us remember those music classes in school, right? So in junior high, I had this music teacher, Henrietta Welch. Henrietta Welch was like the picture of with the little baton, and she'd hit you on the head if you didn't do it right. And she was a choir director. Everybody had to take choir class, right? But she felt like I had a voice that was worth developing. Because of that, because of her in school, then I entered into some competition, fine arts competition. Some people may know what that is. And I got into that, and that opened doors for me to go and sing in different places. Well, then the speaking started. I thought I needed to share some things while I was singing. And that meant that even before I went to college, I was already doing some outside speaking, some traveling. And then when I went to Bible college, I did go to Bible college. And I just continued using the music and continued using. So we started a music group. We had His Four was the name of the group. And there were four of us plus musicians. I mean, we had the whole thing. And then we did so we traveled for the school. And I started traveling I just thought why do I have to wait till I get done? And so I did. I put 4 years in. I didn't think that I would finish my 4 years. I thought Jesus was coming. I had to get out there. And let me just say that someone who hears that, be driven by the fact that Jesus could come at any time, but also remember, don't be afraid to get yourself some education and prepare yourself, because it may be that, like me, now that I'm 40, it may be that Jesus won't come for a while, but get with it. Yes. Get your education. I got education, and we got out, and
I saw, I'm not sure if this is correct, but did you make a record back in the day?
Oh my goodness, we made several. So I made one. The first album I made was with a group that I traveled with as a teenager, an uncle and aunt, and we did our first couple albums. We did 2 albums together, and then I did my first solo album when I was 17. And 17 or 18, maybe 18. And then did 3 after that, and yeah.
So did you at some point transition? Because I don't think I've ever heard you sing recently, or maybe you still do. Do you kind of shifted at some?
Thank God today. I mean, there were a lot of people that liked the music that I did, but thank God today we have a lot of talent in our churches. I heard someone say today, I was at UT Southwestern Medical Center today, and somebody said they went to see a Christmas production at a church, and they were blown away by the talent of the people. And I thought to myself, that's exactly right. The talent that we have in churches today, there's probably not as much need for special guests to come in and do music, because we have some extremely talented people that are leading worship. We have worship teams, and so there came a point in my life where the speaking became more important to me than the music. And they had good music in these churches, and I wanted to use local talent. I was always committed to seeing young people raised up because somebody believed in me. Somebody let me sing. Somebody let me speak. And so I live by that today and don't want to ever lose that. And so I moved to the speaking. Now I take a lot of people with me to speak along with me because I want them to be developed.
And when you look back on those early years on the road, going to I'm guessing where the open doors were. Is there any maybe stories that come to mind that and lessons that you learned from the early days of life on the road that God taught you about, maybe for your personal life, maybe for something in ministry that stands out to you?
Well, those early days, I was so dependent. I would say the biggest lesson I learned in those early days was that I was so dependent that God had to show up, that God had to do it. Because of my feelings of inadequacy. I think everyone has those feelings of inadequacy. And I think the biggest danger is when we begin to feel like we can do it without God. So those early days of that dependency and that real need to be prepared and ready and having God be there, the presence of God be there, that was extremely valuable to me. And that, I would say, don't lose that and just continue to stay with that. So I know that for you, prayer has been, the thing that has been your calling card, which I appreciate, because we don't have a lot of people that talk about prayer and really make that their focus. But I think for us and for me, the need for prayer and the need for this dependency on God, that it isn't important that I have talents or that I can. I heard someone say the other day, the biggest problem with great preachers is sometimes they become extremely thirsty in the pulpit for the admiration of the crowd, and that they want to make sure the crowd, and he said, when they become thirsty for that, then the message becomes very dry. And I thought, wow, isn't that the truth? So when we're trying to meet our own needs rather than being dependent on him to be there and be a part of that, I think that was the biggest thing that I learned young years. And I try to teach, so I'm teaching homiletics, and I'll start after Thanksgiving. And I want to make sure that they learn how to put a good message together, and yes, they learn how to communicate well, but yes, that they become dependent on the fact that God has to be there.
Then at what point in that process did coaching become part of your story?
Yeah. So about 2003, there was a major transition in my life. So I stepped away from, in the early years, I did a lot of youth camps, youth conventions. I can't tell you how many. I mean, it was just, I know I did over 100 youth camps and conventions. And then I was asked to come and to be a part of a church. And so when I did that, when I transitioned from that, when I was there in a pastoral position, I was asked to take a little bit of coach training, a 2-day coach training, and to work with pastors in the greater Charlotte area. And when I saw coaching and what coaching could do for somebody, and then I began to meet with these pastors, I began to see the need for coaching. And here's what really, really got me into coaching. This hooked me, was that one of the instructors said, if you want to be a missionary to the corporate world, then coaching will get you in the boardroom. Well, that was my, hey, I have a ministry gift to be an evangelist. So if I could be a missionary to the corporate world, I was big time in. And that's how I really then decided to develop all the coaching skills and the competencies. And and after 2003, then made the decision, you know what, this is what I need to be doing as a major, major part of my life.
And you now have your doctorate in coaching. Right, and so someone who is new to the whole, or it's starting to get out there. That's kind of a topic that people talk about, but maybe someone who's just not familiar. How would you describe what coaching is to the average person?
Well, some people and that's great to get a good definition, because coaching gets confused with a lot of other things. So coaching gets confused with consulting, coaching gets confused with mentoring, coaching gets confused with counseling. So here's the differences. Mentoring is pouring in from my experiences into somebody else. That's mentoring. Coaching is pulling out from them, what's in them. Okay? So mentoring is pouring in from my experiences. Coaching is pulling out. The proverb that says that we're wise when we reach and we pull out of the deep well of men around us. And it's a very, very important thing to pull out of people. People have a lot of knowledge within them, have a lot within them that they are not using. So I want to pull out from them. Counseling deals a lot with the past. Coaching is very focused and is mainly focused on the future. So there's a big difference there. And consulting is basically saying, here's what you need to do. And coaching does not do that. Coaching says, I'll help you think through, think deeper, think broader as to what you should do. You know yourself and you know your situation better than anyone. And so a consultant comes in and tries to learn the situation and then gives advice. But a coach lets the individual examine their situation and ask the right questions in order for them to think deeper, broader, wider, and then come up with their own plan.
So how would someone know, or do you think everyone, maybe that's the wrong question, but do you think everyone needs to have coaching in their life, or and if so, or if not, is there something that would indicate that they needed to look into coaching?
Not everybody is coachable. All right. So some people, but the vast majority of people would benefit widely, big time from coaching. And I would encourage everyone to try coaching and find someone who is a good coach and is trained in coaching. And I think that you'll find it will help you think better and it'll help you become better.
Right. So speaking of becoming better, when this comes out, and I know you're a big fan of growing as a person. When this comes out, it'll be around the new year time frame. People are thinking about becoming better. They're thinking about improvement, maybe New Year's resolutions. Maybe we'll start with this. Do you have a system or strategy, whether New Year's or otherwise, but do you have a strategy for your own personal development?
Yeah, I think everybody needs to build a personal development plan. And so a personal development plan, we're all leaders. We're all leading in our home. We're all leading somewhere at work. So a personal development plan or a leadership development plan needs to be focused on you. And that's where a good coach can help you think through where do you need to grow. And I would tell all people listening, there are 5 domains of their life. All human beings are in 5 domains of life. Personal, okay? So the first one is personal. And you can figure out your personal by using the word pies, okay? Right? It's coming to, we all like a piece of pie, right? So pies. Physical. Create a plan for yourself physically. Secondly, is intellectual. So the I. Intellectual. Where do you need to grow in your learning? What are you going to read this year? Pick your books at the beginning of the year. What are you going to read? What are you going to focus on? What are you going to grow? Earl Nightingale. I almost blew that one, didn't I? Earl Nightingale said that if you focus 1 hour a day, every day for 5 years on any subject, you will be an expert in that field. Well, I'll tell you someone who did that was John Maxwell. John Maxwell heard Earl Nightingale say that, focused on leadership 1 hour a day for 5 years, and has never quit. And so now has sold 30, he's written over 100 books, and has sold 30 million books on leadership. Why? Because he spent 1 hour a day for 5 years on leadership. Okay. And so what I'm saying to you is that you got to think intellectually, then you got to think emotionally. Now, this is big because emotional intelligence has to be growing. And the book of Proverbs is filled with over 22 verses on emotional intelligence. If you're going to become more like God, if you're going to become more like Jesus, you have got to grow your emotional intelligence. You got to know when to shut up and listen. And you got to know when to control your anger, and you've got to know when to encourage yourself from your heart and not let your head lie to you. That is all emotional intelligence. So you need to think, where do I need to grow emotionally? And then the last one is spiritually. Where do you need to grow spiritually? So that's one domain. That's just the physical domain, the personal domain. The personal domain. Physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual. That's all the personal domain. Second domain is family. Where do you need to grow in your family? I don't care who you are, you can do better in your family, right? We can all do better in our marriage. We can all do better with our kids. We can all do better with our grandkids. Right? We can all do better with our siblings. We can. So with our so some of you are dealing with elderly parents. You can do better then. And I'm at a point where we're dealing with that. So there needs to be a family plan. How are you going to grow in the relationship to your family? Then the third area is in your job or your career. So how do you need to become better in your job? And put a plan together. The next area is, how are you going to do better in relationship to your church? So everybody can do better in the relationship to their church. Everybody. How are you going to do better in the relationship to church? And then lastly, how are you going to do better in your relationship to your community? So think about that. What am I not doing? Am I doing a small group? Am I impacting my neighborhood? Am I really doing something that's important for my community? And if everybody did, imagine what would happen in America or around the world.
So you take this 5 areas, and then do you sit down, take an hour and or a couple hours, half a day? How does that look? Or do you do it yearly, quarterly? Do you have a process?
Yearly. And then you can review it quarterly. But yearly, set new targets. And it's not just setting the targets or goals or however you want to phrase it. Be careful that you don't get caught, because here's what most people do and why the New Year's resolutions don't work, is because they get confused that the motion of setting the goals and reviewing it is really action, but it's not. It's just the motion. Oh boy, I'm doing better. I know what I'm going to do this year. Oh no, all you did was set the target. Now you got to put it into action. All right. So this is where a coach comes in, because a coach is going to help you not just get trapped in the motion, but is going to make you accountable. And you got to think, who's going to make you accountable in all those 5 areas as to the areas you want to grow in, and then put the action in place. So what are you going to do? And then you got to start doing it, because you got to create new habits to be different from last year. You got to create new habits for this year. And the only way you create habits is with practice, practice, practice. All right? You got to keep exercising what you said you were going to do. Now, the best way to grow a new habit for the new year. So, all right, you ready? Let's say physically that you want to start exercising. All right? Start with 30 minutes a day walking. All right? Or getting your 8,000 or 10,000 steps in on your watch, your Apple Watch, or whatever it might be, okay? And then do it every day. Now, here's the deal. It's the principle of 5. Okay? Here's the principle of 5, right? If you've got a tree in your backyard and you say, that tree needs to come down and I'm going to chop that tree down. All you've got to do is every day go out in the backyard with an axe and hit that tree 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And then the next day, go back out in the backyard and hit that tree with that axe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Now, I can't tell you what day that tree is going to fall down. And it depends on the size of the tree. But if you keep going out there every day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with that axe, that tree's coming down. And what happens is most people quit 1, 2, 3, 4, and it was the 5th one on that day that would have brought that tree down. But here's another problem, is most people go out in the backyard, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on that tree, and then the next day they go out there and they go, that tree needs to come down. I'm going to hit that one. And so they lose their focus. And all I want you to do is focus on these 5 domains and the plan you put together. Just keep your focus and keep consistent, and you'll create new habits and things will change.
So do you think people make too many goals then, and so they're just overwhelmed and don't do anything? Is that?
Well, exactly. Just make one in each area. One in each area. See, you can't do it all. One in each area. If you just do one in each of the 5 domains, you'll change. And then just review it every quarter. How am I doing? Have somebody in your life that knows what you've set up, checking in with you. And then are you doing it every day 5 times?
And 5 times is a metaphor. Obviously, it's not depending on if you're out walking, you're not necessarily doing walking 5 times a day.
No, but you are doing it 5 times a week, or you're doing, you know what I'm saying? So you don't even have to do it all 7 days. If you just walk 5 times a week, I guarantee you won't weigh the same at the end of the year. I'll guarantee you your heart will be better even if you do weigh the same. And you know what? It's not so much weight loss as it is that your heart will be stronger with the weight you're carrying. So any exercise benefits the physical. That's just the one part. If you're reading. So what are you reading? If you're reading 1 hour a day, the same topic, right? 5 hours a week, just 5 hours a week, right? You don't have to do it every day. You don't have to do it Saturday. You don't have to do it Sunday. But if you did do it every day, what's going to happen? 1 hour a day for 5 years, you're going to become an expert in that field. So it's just make sure you know what it is you're going to do. Do it every day. Be consistent. Stay focused. Don't be changing it. Okay?
Is it along with maybe making too many goals and not doing the 5, is there any other mistakes that you see in people's personal development that they get derailed or get off track or get that down the road and stop a ways?
Yeah, they beat themselves up when they miss a day. And rather than beat yourself up when you miss a day, just get out there and do it again. Do it again that day, and celebrate. Celebrate. You got to add reward. How do you train your new dog? You reward the dog. And you know what? If you reward yourself when you do it, whatever you reward, you will repeat. Now, let me give you a little insight here, and I'd encourage you. This is, if you want to read a great book on creating habits, it's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And so people want to learn to pray, right? And they go, I'm gonna pray. Then tie that habit of prayer to a habit you already have. So what do you do every day? Well, I brush my teeth every day. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. So now I want you to tie that habit of brushing your teeth to prayer. What do you mean? I want you to pray every time you brush your teeth. Oh, wow. Well, I want to read God's word. Did you know that they've just done a study of 200,000 evangelical Christians, and that they looked at prayer, they looked at church attendance, and then they looked at Bible reading along with some other things. And if people read the Bible or listened to the Bible 4 or more times a week, they changed behaviors radically. If they only did it 3 times a week, no change. If they only attended church, very, very different change, much smaller. Prayer, much smaller change. But if they read God's word 4 times a week or listened to God's word 4 times or more a week, changed. All right. Well, if that means, guess what? You want to read God's word. Okay, I want to do that. I want to do that 4 or more times a week. All right. Then put your Bible where your toothbrush is. And you go, what do you mean? When you upset the environment, by changing the environment, it has more impact on the creation of habits than anything you can do. So you tie the habit to an existing habit, and then you change the environment. So now not only is your toothbrush sitting there, but your Bible's sitting there, or your prayer journal's sitting there. Now you've changed the environment, you've added it to a habit you already have. Well, I just gave every one of you listening today gold.
Well, that's the simple things that make the huge difference. I think in that Atomic Habits, he talks about 2 minutes can make is where the foundation of a habit. Or I've heard him talk about it. I don't know if that's in the book, but 2 minutes can make all the difference in the world. One more thing on coaching before I have some kind of general questions. Can you kind of a two-part question? Can you give an example of something where it doesn't have to be one of your coaching people, but something that where coaching helped a person and what that did in their life, just to give kind of people inspiration? And then the second part of that is, if they're like, okay, I'm going into a new year, I want to see these habits, how would they go about finding a coach? What would be the kind of...
Yeah. So let's talk about finding a coach. All right. So I had a network of coaches called AG Coaching, Assemblies of God Coaching, and you could go to agcoaching.org, and there'll be a list of coaches that are good, qualified, trained coaches there. The International Coach Federation has coaches that they have certified. There are coaches all over, and you don't have to look too hard. You know, you can Google everything today. So, I mean, there's going to be coaches available to you. The key is to find a coach that the chemistry's right between you and the coach. And then once you find that, stick with that coach, and then that coach will help lead you through, some discovery of what you want to accomplish. That's the first big thing. Go into that relationship with that coach. What do you want to accomplish? And so that would be important. And the second part of your question, give that again.
Well, just an example, or even a general example of how coaching could help someone. For the motivation side of it.
Yeah, coaching helps you think more clearly. Coaching helps you think deeper. Coaching helps you put plans together that you're going to practice, and then accountability as to whether you are, and then helps you figure out your obstacles, because we all have obstacles. There's always an obstacle. There's always something comes up. So if you can think that through and how you're going to overcome that obstacle, coaching will help you with that. And so there's a lot, we could spend a lot of time here on what coaching can do to help you, but that's a big part of it.
So going to some more general, just to help the Christian questions. If you look back over your own last 5 years, is there any belief or habit of your own that you've changed? Maybe something in your own personal development plan that has made a big impact on your life, or maybe something from Scripture that you're thinking about that has changed and helped you grow in your walk with God? So it could be a personal habit or something spiritual.
Well, I'll tell you a couple things that, because you asked a couple different things there. So I'll tell you a couple things that have been very important for me. Number one, creating a mission statement. One of the big habits that I have developed is to know whether what I'm being asked to do or what I have an opportunity to do fits the four things that I decided were most important for me to do in my life. And so I'm able to say no if it doesn't fit those four things. And the four things are in fulfillment of my mission or my purpose. So every person listening today was created by God with a purpose. There's over 1,000 verses in Scripture that say that man is made with a purpose. So Jesus came with a purpose. His purpose was not to be worshiped. His purpose was the cross. That temptation for Jesus was Satan tried to get him to turn the rocks into bread, throw himself down from the building. For what? And they will worship you, right? That was the temptation for a shadow mission. And I think a lot of people are always chasing shadow missions because they never know what their real purpose is. They don't know what the purpose they were designed for. So I would tell everybody, and a coach can help you do this, to come up with a purpose statement that's 16 or 12 words or less. Just a quick purpose statement, a mission statement for your life does not answer. It leaves people with questions. Wow, how are you going to do that? Perfect. Now you create the vision statement of what it is you're going to accomplish as a result of your purpose or mission statement. And that can be as long as you want. Mission statements are short. Vision statements are much longer, broader. And then what are going to be the strategies that you're going to follow to accomplish that in your life, to accomplish the vision and fulfill your mission? And when you can do that, you'll know the strategies are the things you'll do. So you say no to things. And a lot of people don't know how to say no, that habit of saying no, because they don't know what to say yes to. And that's because they don't know their purpose. They don't know the vision of what they want to accomplish at whatever season in life they are in. So that changes with seasons of life. I don't have any children at home that I'm raising. I have some grandkids, but that's a different vision and a different season. And so I need to make those changes. And a lot of people never really come up with a mission statement for their life. They don't re-examine the mission statement in different seasons of life and the vision that they're working towards. So those things become important. Then you know what to say yes to and what to say no to. I think those are very, very, very important habits that I have discovered and that I would tell everybody to. And then every year, you talked about first of the year, what to do. One of the things I would do is ask 4 questions. This will help everyone here. 4 questions. What's right? What's wrong? What's confused? And what's missing? What's right? You want to repeat it this year. What's wrong? You want to end it. End it. Stop it. Change it. What's confused? Clarify it. What's missing? Add it. And if you could just do that, that would be one of the best things you could do at the end and the beginning of a new year.
So it wasn't in my notes, but I know you're a big book person. And you said Atomic Habits. Any other, as someone's coming towards a new year, any book recommendations or anything you're reading right now that you're loving?
Yeah, I would tell you to read the book Disruptive Witness. I think all of us need to be sharing our faith. And the problem is that we don't realize, in order for people to hear you at work, in the neighborhood, around you, there has to be something that disrupts or turns the soil over so the seed can take root. It's the parable of the seed. What's happened in people's lives today, I drove down the street today going to an appointment And I looked, and there were workers, and they were sitting on the side of the road with their phones. They're on the job, and they're in their phones. People can't get up and walk from one room to the next room in their house without fiddling around on their phones. We have become so distracted, okay, by all the media and all that we have, all the input we have, this constant input, that in order to get through that, in order to get through with the gospel, with the seed, so the seed can take root, you've got to disrupt their world somehow. And so in my own personal life, I've had some physical that's been going on, and I've had to take some treatments that I go to every day. And so I made a decision. That every day I was going to pray for a new person when I went to that treatment. And I knew that everybody that was there at that place of treatment was in total disruption. And the reason they were in total disruption was because of their health. You know that not one person has said to me, "Oh no, I don't pray. I don't believe in God. I don't." Oh no. Today I met a brand new guy. He had his face peeled wide open. They removed cancer off this whole side of his face. That whole side of his face has been rebuilt from the flesh and the cartilage in his leg. And it's been totally rebuilt. And there he is sitting there. And I'm talking to him, and he's telling me his story. All I had to do was use redemptive listening and listen to his story, and then come back to him and say, "I'm going to pray for you right now." His wife jumped up out of her chair, came over, and joined me in prayer for him. And he looked at her like, "Oh my goodness, this was the greatest thing could have happened today." Yesterday, the man sitting next to me, his neck was absolutely blood red, like he'd had a sunburn like you can't imagine. And his throat cancer, and that he's dealing with, and man, when he stood up to go to his treatment, the nurse was coming out to get him, and I said, "No, we're gonna pray for Tony before he goes in for treatment." The nurse jumped in and started praying with me. I'm telling you, until people have a disruptive experience, so that book, Disruptive Witness, will help you share faith with people. You got to find a way to disrupt their world because they're so preoccupied with all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's just amazing. So I would tell you that book. Barbara Kerr has just written a book, a workbook that I would tell everybody to get a hold of, and it's called Emotional Intelligence to Create a Compassionate World. And I think we have got to begin to think through how we can be the compassionate people that God designed us to be. And that workbook will help us do that. And I think we've lost some empathy and some compassion and some curiosity about other people. And because of that, we're not a very compassionate people, even if we call ourselves Christians. So I would tell you that one. So, yeah, there's a couple for you.
I knew you'd have some for us. A couple more questions, and then I'll get you on your day. First off, this is one that I've been enjoying asking people, because I heard another podcast person talk about if you could put a sign on a billboard so everyone could see it, what would you say? But if we twitch this, since we're talking to Christians here, if you were able to, a lot of churches still have the bulletin, and you could have like a little space. You're not going to put your website on there. We'll let we'll save that for a moment. But if you were going to give kind of a message, maybe 2 or 3 sentences, it can be longer if you want, but kind of that back of the bulletin. And this Sunday, every church was going to see this. What would you want to say to the church?
I think I would use one word: hope. And I would probably just let that word resonate with everybody who reads it, because if there's anything that everybody is looking for, it's hope. If there is something that everybody needs, it's hope. And I think to understand that we need to give hope everywhere we go. We need to see hope in every circumstance. We need to feed ourselves with hope. And the other thing that I would say in that is, maybe another statement that I would put on there, but is that, I think hope in the soul. And so you asked about books. There's one more book I'll give you. I'll go back to that one. And that's Soul Keeping by John Ortberg. I would tell everyone to read that. But I think you've got to keep your soul healthy. And it's hard to give hope if your soul isn't healthy. If your soul is sick, then the word this year that they pick a word every year that's the word of the year. Do you know what the word of the year is? It just was picked today.
No.
Toxic. And I think they're right. That's it. That is the word of this year, toxic. And when you don't have hope, you're toxic. And I think that's why I would put hope.
Final question, and it's kind of connected. Any final ask? Any resources you got? Where can people find you? And we'll put it in the show notes. But if they want to learn more about what you're doing and your work,
they can go to samfarina.com, and you can contact me, and through that. And so anybody is welcome to do that. You can download my app. Okay, so just go to the App Store. It's free. Just type in Sam Farina, Farina, and you can download my app. And on that app, there actually is how you can create your purpose statement and your vision statement. And on that app is all kinds of videos and all kinds of teaching and all kinds of material. It's free. It's all yours. And, I'm at a point in my life where we're going to give it away. So
we'll put that in the show notes as well, so make sure people know how to get to that. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. You've given us a lot to work with, and so thanks for all that you have given, but also thanks for what you have done for the body of Christ and your blessing that you are.
My privilege.
All right, God bless. Well, there you have it. I hope that conversation was encouraging to you as you think about 2019 and all that God has for you, the dreams that He has, the purposes He has for you. I hope you'd say, this is something that God would have me to work on. Maybe it's your purpose statement. This is what my assignment in the world. I believe strongly that your assignment matters and doing what you're called to do and going after that. And so maybe listen to it again or go over to the show notes at christconnection.cc/podcast and look at some of those books that he recommends. Grab one of those books, or just go on over to the show notes and find something that he, his website. Take a next step on this, to not just listen to it and then let it set aside, or maybe here's something for you as you look at 2019. Who could you go on this journey with? Maybe share the podcast with a friend and say, I listened to this and I want to grow in my relationship with God. I want to go on a journey with Him, and will you go with me and see where some of my best thoughts and ideas have come just hanging out with friends and seeing what they have to say and kind of doing it, sharpening each other together. So that's one way to do that as you grow in your relationship with God. Again, that's christconnection.cc/podcast to get the show notes there. Also, just would you pray with us as we're going into this new year? I'm excited to pour into this podcast even more and all of our online resources. I believe God has a plan that to help you grow, and that's kind of my mission in life. My purpose is to help you grow in your relationship with Jesus, to connect with Him. And so one of that ways is with this podcast, and so I want to be a resource. Maybe God would lay on your heart to become a financial partner with us, or you can do that also on our website. Or reach out to us personally. Also, The dog just decided to get excited about this, I guess. Also, this year we're going to be looking at adding some sponsors to the. And so if you're a business owner or have a ministry that would like to partner with us, reach out again. We're on social media at Christ Connection or Enjoying Prayer, and talk to us. We'd love to have a conversation about it because I'm excited for your potential and your possibility. We want to be a resource to as many people as possible. So pray with us about that, and join us on this journey of 2019. See what God would have in and through you. God bless you. Until next time, thanks for listening.